Hi, I'm the Model Train Master, and today we'll be weathering this Baltimore, Ohio 1357 Baldwin 10-wheeler from Bachman. So, let's get rolling. Okay, so I'm going to weather this, put cab curtains in it, and put seats and crew figures in it. So, first let's weather. I'm going to use some grimy black paint, plus my airbrush, to spray it on. Okay, so I got my setup, and I'm going to weather this. Here it is. Looks pretty good. So, let's do the other side. Okay, so let's get to the next step, rust. Okay, so I'm going to put some rust streaks down the tender. I'm also going to put some rust streaks on the engine, but I haven't decided where yet. Okay, so I'm going to have some rust streaks on the smoke box and on the tender. I forgot to turn it on. Okay, so it seems that I forgot to flush out the cleaner. There we go. So let's try that again. So the thing is, make sure you flush out your cleaner out of the airbrush before you put some rust paint in it. Okay, so that looks pretty good, but I'm going to put rust where the tender and frame meet, or water would collect, and maybe even some rust on the frame. Maybe some grime, maybe some rust. So, let's do the engine. Okay, so we've put grime and rust, and that'd be a major step in the weathering process, and it sure is. But there are a few more things to do. First of all, we need to apply this. It's made by Tamiya, and what it's used for is a wash, and the wash, I'm using it to create oil effects on my engine and tender. So what I'm doing is basically pretend you're oiling it. Note that this is not a real oiling job, and this doesn't have very much of a lubricating process, but make it look like it was actually lubricated. Please note that this would take more than one time to do it, and you probably need to do it more than once to get a realistic effect, and it dries much more subtle than it really does. I've had this experience on budget engines now, so make sure you just glob on more. Don't worry if it looks unrealistically a lot. Trust me, it will dry. The tender it's a bit trickier, so here's how to do it. Masking tape. So the masking tape is kind of peeling off before I apply before the video. But here's how to do it. Basically, you have your wash, and you put it around the wheel, and you roll with the brush on. Since the masking tape's kind of sticky, it's a little hard to roll it, but don't get any on wheels, especially if it picks up electricity like on this one. However, see, I accidentally got on the wheel. But don't worry if it gets a little bit of wash on wheels. I've done that before, and the engine I weathered was fine. So, also, here's a little trick to make it a little subtle detail. Do the springs, and also do do the journal bearings, because those have a tendency to have oil. And yes, because there's oil, it will look greasy. Let's do the other side. And same thing with the other side. Okay, so next we have one more thing to do. We're gonna put on this. This is some soot wash. We don't have one thing to do, but this is one of the last steps. And it's homemade, mixing a little bit of acrylic white paint with acrylic black paint to give a gray-black appearance on it. Now, you may be asking, Owen, why didn't you just use an airbrush? And I have done that. It's that an airbrush wouldn't give as realistic as an effect. Now, you just apply some down the engine, apply some down, and this effect is supposed to be very subtle. It's supposed to be a very subtle effect. So if you now I notice how you got some rust paint on my brush, but if this happens to you, it's okay. You can either use a new brush or wash it off. So also, you may wish to put some soot wash on the rest of the engine, and that's what I'm doing right now. Now, soot wash, the soot wash you could either buy at a store, or in this case, get it homemade. Last but totally not least step is to use some Testors Dull Coat on this engine. Let some stuff dry for a little. Testors Dull Coat does take a long time to dry, so for me, myself, we'll have to wait a few hours. But with YouTube, I can just cut it and you watch in a few seconds. Okay, so let's apply that Dull Coat. Take my bowl out, dip the brush in it. Here's a note. Dull Coat doesn't smell very good. So stroke it up on the boiler, and Dull Coat does not smell. Again, Dull Coat smells pretty rough, and the Dull Coat I've tried Dull Coat on other model trains, and it looks really good. It makes it look way less shiny than it will look way less shiny. It makes it look flat. Dull Coat is a brand of flat coat made by Testors. So let's do the other side. Okay, so here's the step. Open the bottle, dip the brush in, take out the excess on the rim, start dull coating your engine. Do the walkways. Do the walkway to the boiler, to the tender. This engine, now it's a bit trickier since there's air pumps on the side, and there's lots of detail. Lots of detail here. Once you're done with that, you can dull coat your cab hand. Looks much better. It may look a bit shiny, but trust me, it will look much, duller. It'll look it won't look very shiny at all, so you can really take the shine off of this. Now, there are some scratches on this engine when I first got it, but because it's weathered, it's not that big of a deal. But if you want this engine repaired, okay, so here's the finished engine, and it looks actually pretty good. So let's start moving to tender. Now, since it's not as textured as the boiler, you could use a sponge. You could use a sponge, but a brush works too. So the procedure here is a bit different. So you pour your dual coat into the palette. Now do it very slowly and never overfill your dual coat. Trust me, you don't want dual coat on your floor or workbench. Then take this side of the sponge that you've cut, dip it in, and pick up the tender. And it's gonna be a little harder on camera, but just apply it on like this. And you can do this on the tender, and it's much easier. And straight down so you get more realistic streaking effects. Okay, so I realized that the dual coat seemed to eat through the paint, and apparently that's what happened. So here's what I've learned, and hopefully you'll learn this too. But never dual coat after you paint. Dual coat first. Just let the dual coat dry, and then I'll put on a new coat of paint. I redid the weathering, and it looks even better than the last time. So happy accident. So I'm also going to do some touch-ups on the smoke wash, and also on the oil spots over here. Here's the finished product. Now let it dry, and we'll run on the layout. Okay, so that's the end of this part 1 video. I'm the Model Train Master, and I'll see you next time.